I just want to say to many of you out there who've reached out to me via phone and email and on social media to thank me for doing these virtual tour series, that I truly appreciate it. It warms my heart. I know that these presentations now are valued. I know how much it means to everybody. And it's really wonderful that this has kept everybody busy and engaged during the pandemic. So thank you for your kind words. I want to share a little bit about myself for those that don't know me. Again, my name is Mara Walsh. I'm in the United States. I'm specifically between Philadelphia and New York, which is the Eastern time zone. I started leading physical tours with EF Tours as a leader for girl travel and taking girls and their families to international destinations every summer. I've since expanded my travel program. Please note that even though my travel group started as Girl Travel Tours, catering to girl trips, you'll also start to see the name Getaway Travel Tours being used to help alleviate any confusion with who's eligible to join us, because we do welcome both women and men on our tours. Now I also lead adult-only tours for EF Go Ahead Tours, as well as several other tour operators. We welcome females and males, and we also do some multi-age groups from teens through senior citizens. And as a certified travel agent, I can also book you on your dream trip, whether that is part of a group or on your own. So just reach out to me and let me know where you would like to go, and I can help you get there. In terms of the virtual tours, there's a couple reasons why I started this series a year ago, back when the pandemic started. One, I really wanted to support the tour director community during this time of travel restrictions where they have not been able to work. And two, I really wanted to keep the excitement of travel alive for my travel group and extend that opportunity to those of you who've learned about us through your friends, your family, on social media, and whatever other means it has been. I've done probably about 40 of these virtual tours since COVID has struck. If you'd like to access any of the recordings, they are all available on my website, girltraveltours.com. They're also available on Facebook and on YouTube. We have several more tours lined up in the coming weeks. I just want to share a screen so that you see what those tours are. We're going to go to Portugal. We're doing a Mystery on the Danube river cruise, south of France, ancient Rome, Sydney, Australia, Wales and Cornwall, the Taj Mahal, Venice, Western Scotland, and Jerusalem. That was the rescheduled tour from last week, which we now have rescheduled for August 3rd. These have all been added to my website, so feel free to go on and register. You do have to register individually for each one, so please know that when you go up there. And I'm in the midst of planning the end of summer months and the beginning of the fall with destinations such as Salzburg and other great places to visit. As long as you're interested in viewing these virtual tour presentations, we will continue to produce them for you. I know that many of you found my virtual events through Facebook, and some of you are on Facebook now, so welcome through our live stream that's going on the Girl Travel Tours Facebook page. Just be aware that there are scammers on Facebook, and they give you links in the comments and try to get you to go off of my page, promising you other virtual tours. And sadly, they are just trying to get your credit card information. So please never give your credit card to enter a free virtual event. It is your decision whether you use your credit card later on to tip a tour guide, that's fine. But to enter a virtual event, you should not be asked to give a credit card when they say the event is free. Okay, before we get going, I want to share with you a few ways that you're going to interact with us. One, feel free to chat directly to me. If you're on Zoom, you can chat with one another on Facebook. If you have a question directly for the tour director, or you would like to ask me something about my program that you want us to share in the audience, please do it in the Q&A. We will address those questions after the presentation. I always like to start our tour with an interactive poll, and I'm going to put that poll up right now. And that poll gives us an idea of what your connection is with Belgium. So let's start. What is your connection to Belgium? I have been and love it. I have a trip booked. I plan to go in the future. I have no set plans, but I'm interested in the location, or I am solely interested in experiencing it virtually. So I'm going to give you a moment while you can sort out the poll, and you could tell me what your interest is with Belgium. It looks like there's a lot of people that might have set plans to go in the future. And then there's a ton of people who've been and loved it. So there's about 30% of people who've been and loved it. And there are people who have no set plans, but are really interested in the location. I'm going to stop sharing my screen right now. And if you have to stop sharing and you want your screen to disappear from the menu, you do have to click that little red button on the top left so it goes away. Okay, so today's tour is to Belgium, where we will visit the most spectacular squares, sample the world's best chocolates, and maybe even learn a little bit about the French fry. This virtual tour is scheduled to be 90 minutes plus a Q&A. So I hope you're ready with a snack and a drink in hand. I can attest that in a group tour, they would not be complete with a fantastic tour director. A tour director is like a personal concierge who stays with the group from start to finish and handles all of our problems and our logistics. They make sure the tour is full of learning, fun, and culture. They make sure it's stressless and easy to navigate. We try to simulate that type of journey in this virtual tour experience. So I hope you enjoy it. And obviously, if we're not traveling, our tour directors are not traveling. So we're hoping that this type of virtual tour experience not only allows them to continue to do what they do best, which is share their passion for travel, but it also inspires us and encourages us to leave some tips to give them our appreciation. So I will share in the chat and the Q&A how we can tip the tour director as we go on. Okay, so today we're lucky to have back a tour director who led us through Amsterdam a few months ago. Ione is here to show us Belgium. Ione, come on and say hello to our guests and get ready to share your screen. You're going to have to turn yourself off mute and you're going to take over the screen. And when you're ready, I will give you the controls.
Hello, everybody. This was somewhere.
How are you doing on sharing the screen?
Yeah, I'm almost there.
Good. Perfect.
Hello, everybody. Nice to be back. Thank you, Mara, for welcoming me again. And hello, everybody. If it's Tuesday, this must be Belgium. So I was so surprised that this tour of Belgium happens to be on a Tuesday. Mara already mentioned that, but if you haven't seen it, I strongly recommend you to watch this brilliant comedy from the 70s, I think, which is called If It's Tuesday, It Must Be Belgium. I had to rewatch it a couple of weeks ago, and I have to say I was almost a bit laughing because it's brilliant. It's very funny. But I almost crying because it tells the story of a tour guide all over Europe. So I felt a little bit nostalgic. So my name is Ione, and I will be your tour director tonight. Belgium is a very special country to me. I have led there lots of tours. I have lived many years in the Netherlands where I learned to speak Dutch. So when I go to Belgium, which is the neighboring country of the Netherlands, I feel at home because in Belgium they speak French and Dutch. I am Italian, so I can speak and understand French, but I can also speak Dutch, which is the equivalent to Flemish, the language that they speak in Belgium. So everybody is very kind and happy with me in Belgium because they don't really expect an Italian tour guide to be able to speak their language. I have called this tour Belgium, the heart of Europe, simply because that is what Belgium really is. And it's one of the purposes of this tour to help you understanding why. For a start, the most important cities of Europe, such as London, London is not in Europe anymore, and I still have to get used to it, but Paris, Rotterdam, Amsterdam, Bonn, Luxembourg, they are all located within a radius of 200 miles around the capital of Belgium, Brussels. Oops. There we go. For more than 2,000 years, the ownership of the land that we now call Belgium has been contested more times than practically any other piece of European soil. Under the new management sign has been hung up by the Vikings, the Franks, Dutch, Holy Roman Emperor, Burgundians, Habsburgs, Spanish, Austrians, French. This happened all before Belgians finally declared their independence quite recently in 1830. So life is tough when you are a small country. As you see in the map I'm showing you, Belgium is, you can see it's the red colored spot on the map. Is bordered by the Netherlands to the north, Germany to the east, Luxembourg to the southeast, France to the southwest, and the North Sea to the northwest. It covers an area of 11,800 square miles, and it has a population of more than 11.5 million, making it the sixth most densely populated country in Europe. First of all, breaking news, an important update. Belgium has become bigger recently. It was all over the newspapers, at least here in Europe, thanks to a Belgian farmer who was apparently annoyed by this stone that you see in the picture, which was marking the border with France in his structured path. He decided to move it inside the French territory. Belgian authorities were quite pleased, and ironically, they commented, he made Belgium bigger and France smaller. Sad news is that he had to put back the rock again. So here I'm showing you the map of the country with the colors of the flag. So on this tour, we're going to discover together some of the distinct features of this country by talking in depth about the two cities I've picked that are particularly significant in terms of Belgian history, heritage, and culture. And these two cities are Brussels and Bruges. Needless to say, there are many other Belgian cities such as Antwerp, Ghent, Ypres, and Bruges, and Liège, which are extremely beautiful and rich of art and culture and history. Unfortunately, it would have taken too long to talk about them all. So I've picked up these two with the intention of giving you an introduction and most of all an inspiration to maybe put this unique country on your bucket list. So the colors of the Belgian flag, we have black, yellow, and red. And these colors were taken from the coat of arms of the Duchy of Brabant. Belgium is a sovereign state and a federal constitutional monarchy with a parliamentary system. The king is Philip, who succeeded his father Albert II in 2013. The country is divided into three highly autonomous regions: the Flemish region called Flanders in the north, the Wallon region called Wallonia in the south, where they speak French. Meanwhile, in the Flanders, they speak Flemish, which is equivalent to Dutch. And then the Brussels capital region, which you see right in the middle, striped in pink and yellow, which is the smallest but most densely populated region. The third official language of Belgium is German. The German-speaking community is made up of 73,000 people resident in the east of the Wallon region. The city of Brussels was officially declared bilingual by the Belgian government in 1966, although the majority of the inhabitants speak French. As a consequence of that, all streets and direction signs in the Belgian capitals are in the two languages, and so are the signs in public transports. Sometimes it can be confusing. I'm showing you the two flags of Belgium, of Flanders and Wallonia. As you see, the Wallonian flag, this was designed in 1930, and it depicts a red rooster, commonly known as the boulder rooster, usually associated to the city of Liège. The flag of the Flanders is called the Vlaamse leeuw, the Flemish lion. Belgians are bullied by their neighbors. French tend to look at them as unattractive and lacking of finesse, while Dutch look at them as backward, parochial, and stupid. Both of them make Belgium the object of many jokes. On the other side, the Belgians consider their neighbors arrogant and patronizing. French was once the language of the Belgian ruling class, with Flemish speakers looked down upon as peasants, and the German speakers simply dismissed out as being German. Tensions between the Franco-Flemish language divide periodically leads to constitutional crisis and the hard task of forming or non-forming governments. In 2020, Belgium broke its own standing record for the longest political crisis and longest period without an elected government. That was 592 days. On this tour, I will do my best to introduce you to this complexity. Meanwhile, we enjoy together the marvelous sights that the country has to offer. We'll start from Brussels, the capital of Belgium. So did you know that Brussels is 4 times capital? It is the capital of Belgium, the capital of Europe, the capital of Flanders, and the capital of the French community. 179 different nationalities with 420,000 foreigners out of a total population of 1.200,000 million people. Basically here, 1 inhabitant in the 3 is not Belgium. So as you see, I'm beginning this tour of Brussels mentioning, talking to you about Belgian sense of humor, as I believe personally that humor always makes things easier to understand. I'm going to show you right now what is undoubtedly the most famous Belgian icon all over the world, the mannequin piss. Literally translated, it means a small pissing boy, and it is the most famous symbol of Belgium and a must-see of the city of Brussels. Here you see the original statue from 1619 kept at the Brussels City Museum. You will find them on Rue Charles Bulls, Brussels' most touristy shopping street. The fountain statue of a little boy is comically tiny and perversely perfect national symbol for surreal Belgium. It embodies the rebellious spirit of the Belgian people, their symbol of protest and their self-mocking sense of humor. Most of the time, the statue's nakedness is hidden beneath a costume relevant to an anniversary, national day, or local event, and you can admire his ever-growing wardrobe displayed at the Maison du Roi in the Grand Place. In 15th century Europe, depictions of peeing boys were in high demand, from the Belgian nobility to the fashionistas of the Renaissance in Italy, where they call it putto pisciatore. In Italian, in art history, putto pisciatore denotes a figure of a nude and chubby faced little boy, sometimes with wings, who personifies an innocent young spirit. The real purpose of the statue was to provide clean drinking water to the city of Brussels, joining a network of drinking fountains around the Grand Place. As you see, donating costumes to mannequin pieces became popular in the 20th century, and a random selection of 800 or so outfits is now in its possession, is on display in the Mannequin Piece Clothes Museum section in the Musée de la Ville in the Grand Place. By the way, the little boy wasn't the only fountain. Here you see le cracheur, or the spewer in Flemish, even older than the mannequin piece, but a rather miserable looking guy dribbling down his bare chest and folded arms. So really not as cheerful as his peeing rival. The more recent rival for attention of mannequin piece is the statue of a small girl known as Ione piece, which was put up by feminists fed up with the attention given to the male. The fountain is a private fountain, and its caretaker is the owner of a restaurant in Rue de Bruges, who donates the coins dropped in the fountain to a local hospital. A third fountain completes the trinity of peeing statues in Brussels. Seneca piece, a dog in Rue de Chartres, here since 1998. Unfortunately, though, it doesn't have water connected. Now, from small to big, it's only 3 minutes walk from the mannequin piece to the astonishing Grand Place. Here you see the house of the Dukes of Brabant. 6 houses sit behind this single palatial facade, designed by Guillaume de Bruyne in 1770 and reworked in 1882. The Grand Place, also called in Flemish Grote Markt, Big Market, is the central square of Brussels, undoubtedly one of the most beautiful squares in the world. It is a very theatrical space designed to surprise the visitor. You can only access it from one of the 6 small alleys on the sides. It is the most memorable landmark in Brussels, and it has been a UNESCO World Heritage Site since 1998. Ever since its creation during the Middle Ages, the Grand Place has continued to be a commercial hub. This square is frequently hosting festive and cultural events. Among them, in August of every even year, the flower carpet, an installation of an immense flower carpet in the center, in the middle of the square. The square measures 223 feet by 361 feet. There is something funny about Brussels, the capital of such a small country, with a small boy as its most beloved representative, hosts some of the biggest buildings in the world. So Grand Place is our #1 biggest building, but there are other 2 coming up, so stay with me. Hotel de Ville was built between 1448 and 1480, and it was the only building that survived the French bombardment in 1695. It is slightly asymmetrical, and the creamy stone facade is ornate with Gothic gargoyles and reliefs. Its tower is topped by a gilded statue of St. Michael, Brussels' patron saint. In the 19th century, it was adorned with 290 statues. In the past, the rich guilds of corporations used these facades to make themselves look good. Nowadays, only the Federation of Belgian Brewers still has its headquarters on the Grand Place, although it does not own the building. Only 10 of the 33 buildings that make up the square are owned by the city of Brussels. The rest are privately owned. Oops. The Golden Tree. This was the former Brewers Guild Hall and still is the Belgian Brewers headquarters that also hosts the Brewery Museum. You can recognize it from the hop plants climbing up the columns. The neo-Gothic King's House, or Broadhouse, contains the Brussels City Museum, which narrates the history of the city with architecture relics, old maps, and some gorgeous paintings. It was designed in the Gothic Revival style, which borrows from and reinterprets the decorative elements in the Middle Ages. The original King's House had in fact been built as an administrative complex at the request of Charles V, the Holy Roman Emperor, born in Belgium and precisely in the beautiful city of Ghent. La Maison de Boulangère, if you look at the picture, it's on the right-hand side, and it's the Baker's Guildhall, which now hosts Le Café Le Roi d'Espagne. The gilded bronze bust above the door is the baker's patron Saint Hubert. Le Cygne, this building in the middle, it used to be the Butcher's Guildhall, and it's featuring a carved swan above the door. The building hosted Karl Marx in 1847, but nowadays is the finest upmarket restaurant. This picture shows you the procession of the Ommegang. Ommegang in Dutch means move around, and it is a type of medieval pageant. It is an historical reenactment of the joyous entry of Emperor Charles V and his son Philip in Brussels in 1549. Nowadays, the event takes place twice a year at the turn of June and July. Its starting point is in the Sablon district in the historic center of Brussels, and it ends with a large spectacle in the Grand Place. Another beautiful way that leads you to the Grand Place is the Saint-Hubert Passage, opened in 1847 by King Leopold I. It was Europe's very first shopping arcade. Under its motto, Omnibus Omnia, everything for everybody, which is displayed in the fronton of its palace-like facade, the Saint-Hubert Passage attracted people of fashion. The galleries, here you see a video, the galleries consist of two major sections, more than 330 feet in length, and they are respectively called Galerie du Roi, King's Gallery, and the Galerie de la Reine, Queen Gallery, and a smaller side gallery, which is called Galerie de Prince, Princess Gallery. The present name, Passage Saint-Hubert, was given in 1965. Despite the not quite inviting name, La Mort Subite, the sudden death, this is one of the best addresses in town for beers. It has been pouring beers since 1928. Its name was taken from a dives game called 421, as the one who lost was called Mort Subite, or sudden death. It is the only bar in the world that has inspired a ballet by the great choreographer Maurice Béjart. Georges Simenon, another very famous and prolific Belgian writer, once said, "The smell of freshly poured beer is the smell of my country. Belgium is the greatest brewing nation on earth." According to the official Belgian Tourist Board website, there are over 450 different varieties of Belgian beers, brewed in over 100 breweries, more types of beers than any other country in the world. So, first break, get yourself a beer, and let's enjoy it together. I'm drinking a Belgian beer. I'm not saying the name, but it's Belgian. Beer in Belgium is as serious as wine can be in Italy or France. No other country can pride itself on such a sheer variety of beer styles, nuanced flavors, and fermentation varieties as Belgium. Beers can be quite strong, reaching 8, 9, 10, and above percentages. The lambic beers are the most exciting, and they are produced by spontaneous fermentation. That means that no yeast is added to the mix of water, grain, and hops, and the fermentation happens from wild yeast found naturally in the air of lambic breweries centered around Brussels. Lambics are also used as the base of the huge variety of fruit beers, such as cherry beers, raspberry, blueberry, and blackcurrant beers. Another kind of beer is the wheat beer or white beers, a family of light, easy to drink flavored filled beers made from the combination of wheat and barley with the addition of crushed coriander seeds and curacao orange peel. The Trappist beer is made by monks, which can sound quite funny if we think that many religious groups demonize drinks. But in Belgium, the monks are simply following the instructions of Saint Benedict, the founder of modern monasticism, who decreed in the 6th century that monks should live from the work of their hands. There have been as many as 600 breweries operating in Europe, and now only a dozen remain, with 6 of them operating in Belgium. There are also Belgian beers labeled as abbey beers, which are produced under the license from monasteries to commercial breweries. But it is only the Trappist.
Ione, I'm not hearing you right now. Can you just confirm that you are with us?
Can you hear me?
Yes, you're back.
I'm back. So I'm so sorry. We just had a
Power outage?
I'm so sorry about this.
So Ione, are you still in control of your computer or no? We do still see a slide of a lot of beers.
Yes. Can you see me?
Barely. You look like you have a candle, which is fine. It's a
Well,
flashlight.
it's going to be exciting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, I am in the darkness now. The
Okay.
electricity just gone off.
Okay.
If it's Tuesday, this must be Italy without electricity, but we'll go on. Huh?
You go, girl. You go.
We'll see what happens. I think the monks got a little bit angry with me, maybe. I don't know. Anyways, I was telling you that abbey beers are produced under the license from monasteries to commercial breweries, but it is only the Trappist beer that are brewed within the monastery ground under the supervision of the monastic order. Let's see. Okay, with Belgian beers, the use of correct glass is an essential part of the beer drinking experience, and it is practically a criminal offense to serve a beer in a cafe in the wrong glass. Just few steps away from the cafe, walking uphill, you will find this outstanding Gothic cathedral of Saint Michael and Gudule. It hosts coronation and royal weddings. Brussels' grand twin-towered cathedral bears at least some resemblance to Paris Notre Dame. Began in 1226, constructions took 300 years, even longer than Notre Dame in Paris. An accomplished attraction, which you will find in Rue du Sable, close to the cathedral, is the Belgian Comic Strip Center, opened in 1989, that has been honoring the creators and heroes of the ninth art for more than 25 years. The museum is hosted in an exceptional Art Nouveau warehouse designed in 1906 by Victor Horta. Belgians have elevated this art to the status of the ninth art. Each major town in Belgium has its comic strip shop. The two most famous bande dessinée, which is the French word for comic strip, are undoubtedly Tintin, that you see in the picture, created by Hergé in 1929. And you all probably recognize this, the Smurfs, created by Peyo in 1958. There is a Smurf in each of us. Which Smurf are you? I am the darkness Smurf right now, am I? A truly wonderful tour that you can experience is to follow the BD trail. BD stands for bande dessinée, so the comic strip trail around the city of Brussels. 33 house-sized murals of various Belgian comic strip appear on random gable ends around the city center. In the following slides, I am giving you a taste of what this tour could look like with a little help of the music of a great Belgian artist called Django Reinhardt. I hope you have enjoyed this quick tour. And now we are back in Rue de Boucher by the arcade in Passage Saint-Hubert, where we will find the uniquely colorful Rue de Boucher and Petit Rue de Boucher, a pair of narrow alleys jam-packed with pavement tables and ice displays of fish and crustaceans. It's gorgeous to see, although food standards are much lower than what you can expect everywhere else. There are, though, a couple of good restaurants. You only have to choose them carefully. Anyway, in Belgium, food is really not a problem. All meals are enormous. The portions are big and the food is great. You need to know that Belgium also has an impressive number of Michelin-starred restaurants. Despite of this, their national dishes are quite humble, but still delicious. Moule, frites, fries, soup, meat, potatoes, herrings, waffles, chocolate, cake. The best mussel in Belgium come from the Netherlands, from the province of Zeeland. They are typically served at the table in their cooking pot, either steamed in white wine with shallots, parsley, and butter, they call it marinière, or steamed in a stock thickened with cream, and they call it à la crème. When in Belgium, do like the Belgians and remember that Belgians only eat mussel during the month containing the letter R. The mussel season usually starts in September. Not far from here, on the way from the Grand Place to the Mannequin Pis, on Rue de la Violette, you will find the Museum of Fashion and Lace. Lace making has been one of Flanders' finest crafts since the 16th century. While cloth-cant bobbing lace originated in Bruges, the needle-cant needlepoint lace was developed in Italy, but predominantly made in Brussels. When it comes to fashion, Belgium has a rich history, but also a very lively contemporary fashion scene. In terms of fashion, Antwerp has a unique story to tell with its prestigious Academy of Fine Arts. Now you have to see this. I'm getting now a candle. This is very post-war kind of leading tour. The whole city is without electricity, so we'll see what happens.
Let's just hope they keep their internet connection and we're all good.
If you were missing the adventures of travel, I'm doing my best to give all that back to you tonight. Oh, that's very fun. Cloth-cant bobbin lace belongs to Bruges, while Nalcant, the needlepoint lace, belongs to Brussels. We'll see laces demonstration later on when we talk about Bruges. The Bourse is Belgium 1873 Stock Exchange building. Its grand neoclassical facade is decorated with sculptures, and some of the works here are made by Auguste Rodin. Maybe you know him from The Thinker, the famous sculpture, which you can visit in Paris. Rodin lived and worked in Brussels when he was a young apprentice sculptor. A short stroll up Rue Montagne de la Cour, up to the Mont des Arts, will take us to a new cultural monumental area, a few steps away from the Grand Place area. And we are now going up to Brussels' regal upper town area. Situated on the imposing Mont des Arts with a broad vista over Brussels Square, Brussels Meeting Center sits in the historical and cultural heart of the city, very close to the center of European government. The Place Royale, or Koningsplein, is an historic neoclassical square built between 1775 and 1782 as part of a urban project including Brussels Park. It is rectangular in shape and it is flanked by some of the main museums in the city. The main buildings in the Place Royale are the Church of St. James on Coudenberg, consecrated in 1787, and the Constitutional Court of Belgium in the Hotel de Coudenberg. At the center of the square, you can see an equestrian statue of Prince Charles Alexander of Lorraine that had been melted down during the French Revolution to get the metal. On the western side of the square, we find the main building of the Royal Museum of Fine Arts, a prestigious collection of 20,000 works of art. The museum collection traces the history of painting, sculpture, and drawing from the 15th to the 21st century. They preserve the works of the Flemish Primitives, Peter Bruegel, but also other famous painters such as Paul Rubens, Auguste Rodin, Paul Gauguin, Henry Moore, Jan Fabre, and many, many others. One of the most interesting museums in this area is the Magritte Museum, opened in 2009 with a large multidisciplinary collection of 200 pieces of the Belgian artist René Magritte, who is undoubtedly one of the most prominent painter, a surrealist painter. His works are characterized by particular symbols, which were often set in unusual circumstances. Inspired by the Italian painter Giorgio de Chirico, he developed a singular style that comprised carefully rendered everyday objects, often placed in enigmatic juxtaposition. As you may remember, these famous works, Ceci n'est pas un pipe. A truly beautiful museum, which is actually one of my favorites, is the MIM, Musical Instrument Museum. This 1899 former department store is an Art Nouveau showpiece, and this museum is a celebration of music in all its forms, with a collection of more than 2,000 historic instruments. The emphasis is very much on listening, with auditory experiences around every corner, from shepherds, bagpipes, and Chinese carillons and harpsichords. There is an amazing rooftop terrace where you can enjoy a superb city panorama. As we're talking about music, I really have to mention at this point some great Belgian musicians, such as Jacques Brel, the Belgian chansonnier, to whom is dedicated a huge archive that is possible to visit in the city of Brussels, who is organized by the Fondation Jacques Brel. Another great musician that you just have heard in the previous comic strip tour is Django Reinhardt. He was a hugely influential jazz figure, and he was a free-spirited gypsy, but he was born in Belgium, and his string band music has had an enormous impact on the development of Western swing. The piece that we heard previously is called The Minor Swing. And then Antoine Joseph Adolphe Sax, the Belgian inventor and musician who created the saxophone in the early 1840s, patenting it in 1846. Here you see the Royal Palace, Palais Royal. These days, Belgium's royal family lives at Laken, but this imposing 19th century building with this remarkable neoclassical facade remains its official residence. It's only open to visitors in the summer, as here is where the King Philip works every day. In the city patch of greenery is Parc de Bruxelles, an old formal park flanked between the Palais Royal and the Palais de la Nation. Palace of Justice. This is one of the biggest buildings in Europe. So now you have your number 2 biggest building monument, which I was mentioning before. It is larger than St. Peter in Rome. And when it was completed in 1866, it was the world's biggest building. Do not blame me if I'm showing you a picture with scaffoldings, because there's always scaffoldings on this building since its very beginning, and it is constantly under renovation. Behind the building, a very romantic terrace, which offers wide panoramas all over the city of Brussels with a very special view on the Atomium and the Kuckelberg Basilica, which are the stars of the shoreline. Here you see the Kuckelberg Basilica. And this is our number 3 biggest building. It is dedicated to the Sacred Heart, and it is inspired a little bit to the Basilica of the Basilique de Sacré-Cœur in Montmartre, Paris. The construction was halted by the 2 world wars and was finished only in 1969. It is one of the 10 largest Roman Catholic churches in the world. Further north, we can explore the area of the Atomium. It is a futuristic structure, a contemporary art masterpiece. It is a replica of a carbon crystal multiplied 165 billion times, standing 100 meters high. The 9 shiny spheres are 20 meters wide each, and they represent the carbon atoms as well as the 9 provinces of Belgium at the time it was built. It was the centerpiece of Brussels 1958 World Expo, the first world fair since World War II, and it stands as a symbol of post-war optimism. If I were to choose, I'd pick the Atomium as the symbol of the country, just like the Eiffel Tower or the Big Bang. This should have been a video which was playing, but it's not, but okay, it's in line with the show tonight. So if I was to choose, I would have picked the Atomium as the symbol of the country instead of the mannequin piece. But the trouble is that the engineer, André Vaderkane, was so proud of his concept that he managed to put a copyright on it, but not just on its design, also on its image. So the copyright will run out in 2076. And that is jammer, they say in Flemish. That is a pity. Anyway, Atomium is for me the symbol of Belgium as the beating heart of Europe. Close to this area, we will find the Domaine Royal, which contains a trio of palace villas home to the Belgian ruling family. They can't be accessed by tourists only 2 weeks a year. The greenhouses are particularly beautiful, and they were designed in 1873 by Alphonse Ballat, who was Victor Horta's teacher. A pair of Asian pagodas form the key attraction, both built during the kingdom of Leopold II, who had seen and fallen in love with similar constructions during Paris World Fair in 1890. There is a Japanese pavilion where Art Nouveau flourishes and a pavilion chinoise. Both of them display priceless Asian decorative arts. From north to the city, back to south, in the municipality of Saint-Gilles, you can visit the Victor Horta Museum, located in the private house and studio of Victor Horta. The interior decoration has largely been retained. The mosaics, stained glasses, and wall decoration form an harmonious and elegant whole down to the last detail. Victor Horta, he was one of the most influential European architects in the late 19th century. He pioneered the Art Nouveau style, depicted in a wide variety of beautiful buildings throughout Belgium. Art Nouveau flourished in Brussels, especially because the city was developing economically and expanding, just as this modern movement became popular. So many middle and upper class families opted to have their townhouses built in this extravagant and new style. It was a style patronized by a new merchant class made wealthy by their country's rapid industrialization and King Leopold II acquisition of the Congo. King Leopold II, whom I have mentioned many times so far, has been described by Joseph Conrad, the author of The Art of Darkness, as the vilest scramble for lot that have ever disfigured the history of human conscience. Leopold II is remembered for both helping to modernize Belgium and for the extensive crime against humanity that he committed in Africa. In 1885, he declared himself King of Congo Independent Free State, sole ruler of 920,000 square miles of Africa, an area 8 times the size of his own country. He imposed a tax on the inhabitants of Congo, which they had to pay by working for him full-time and without a wage. Tribespeople were worked to death. Villages that failed to fulfill the demands of the king were razed and the villagers were slaughtered. If you want to know more about this king and his story, you should spend a visit to this incredible museum just outside Brussels, the Tour of Belgium. During his 30-year campaign, King Leopold has grabbed hold and ruthlessly exploit the tract of Africa, which would later become Belgian Congo, to supply the many natural treasures of the Royal Museum of Central Africa. Today, the collection of the museum is focused on various themes relating to the history and cultural anthropology. Close to Saint-Gilles, in the Ixelles municipality, connected to the city through the beautiful, expansive and posh Avenue Louise, very close to the EU district, you will find the very lively and multicultural district of Mattanger, home to the Brussels African community, especially Congolese, renewed for his clothes, shoe shop, hairdresser, booksellers, jewelers, that make the area really unmissable for many local, but also for international tourists. Back to Brussels, last but not least, we're going to explore now the EU area. We will start from Parc du Cinquantenaire, also built during the reign of Leopold II. It is best known for its cluster of museums, art, history, military, and motor vehicles, which houses an incredible 350,000 artifacts. Outer World in the northern building has a huge collection of vintage cars. There's also the massive Arcade du Cinquantenaire, a triumphal arch built in 1880 to celebrate 50 years of Belgian independence. If you want to visit the EU area, you can take the metro from Brussels Central Station and exit to Gare Schumann. Robert Schuman was a French foreign minister from 1948 to 1953, and he was the author of the Schuman Declaration of the 9th of May, 1950, which the European Commission's officially history credits as the beginning of the creation of what is now the European Union. EU has declared 9th of May the European Day, but until they don't give us all a day off, I am not sure this day will be ever taken seriously. Europe, EU polarizes opinion with those in favor and those not. Although it isn't officially headquartered in Brussels, as its offices are spread between Luxembourg, Brussels, and Strasbourg in France, Brussels has become the symbol of it. What do the Brussels-based institutions of the EU bring to Belgium? While it has been estimated that up to 30% of the city income is derived from the activities of the bureaucrats, others complain that the EU has pushed up prices and consumed large areas of the city. Belgium's association with it does not foster a positive impression of the country, and all the negativity about EU institutions rubs off directly on the Belgians. The Berlaymont houses the headquarters of the European Commission, the executive branch of the European Union. In 1951, the Benelux countries, Belgium, Netherlands, and Luxembourg, joined Italy, France, and Germany, signing the Treaty of Paris, creating the European Coal and Steel Community. This was a momentous, world-changing event. Very surprising was that Germany and Italy were also invited to join, despite the disaster of World War II. Their argument was that if the requirements of the 20th century war, coal and steel production, were jointly controlled across Europe, the countries could never go to war with one another again. In 1992, the Treaty of Maastricht opened the way to the euro and coined the title European Union. And the Lisbon Treaty of 2007 increased the power of the European Parliament and created the post of a long-term president for a European Council. The European Parliament buildings are located to the south between Leopold Park and Luxembourg Place, a square. The decision-making bodies of the Parliament, along with its committees and some of its plenary sessions, are held here, and 3/4 of its activity takes place in Brussels. Bruxellois, the people of Brussels, call the EU Parliament the Paul-Henri Spaak building, the Caprice de Dieu, with the whim of gods. Plans are in the pipeline for a complete renovation and possible demolition of one of the European Parliament's two main buildings, the Paul-Henri Spaak building, which houses the main hemicycle that hosts the plenary session. The building was constructed between 1993 and 1995, and according to the Parliament spokesman, the building infrastructure is no longer adequate to meet its needs. A question mark, though, remains over whether the building will be simply demolished and replaced by a new structure or merely refurbished. Here's a picture of the hemicycle inside, the giant debate chamber of the European Parliament, which is possible to visit when the Parliament is not sitting. There is a visitor center called Parlamentarium, where multimedia guides lead visitors to the heart of the European Parliament, explaining the path towards the European cooperation, how the European Parliament works, and what its members are doing to meet the challenges of today. It can be experienced in any of the European Union 24 official languages, and it is open 7 days a week. I hope you have enjoyed Brussels so far. It is now time to transfer to Bruges, 1 hour and 30 minutes driving northwest. Bruges is a magical fairy tale-like city, the westernmost province of the Flemish region. Western Flanders is the only coastal Belgian province, facing the North Sea to the northwest. The whole town of Bruges is part of the UNESCO World Heritage List. Bruges Grote Markt, I'm opening a link, I hope it works, yes. So this is the main square in Bruges, Grote Markt, big market. This is the heart of ancient Bruges, the old market square, lined up with pavement cafes beneath step gable facades. The buildings aren't always quite as medieval as they look, but together they create a fabulous scene dominated by the Belfort, Belgium's most famous belfry. In the center of the market stands the statue of Jan Breydel and Peter de Koning, credited with the leading of the Bruges Matin, a violent uprising against France in 1302. The Historium, which is this palace here on the right-hand side, is located where the Waterhalle used to be. This was the central warehouse for the shipping industry in the thriving trading city. In the 12th century, Flemish trade and industry became very important. The cloth industry, working mainly with English wool and producing high quality textiles, had its largest center at Ghent and Ypres. But in the 13th century, the seaport of Brugge, which is the Flemish name for Bruges, became a center of world commerce. Flanders was both an intermediary between the Mediterranean and the Scandinavian and Baltic countries, and between England and Rhineland. Bruges' highest prosperity was in the 14th century, when the city was a member of the Hanseatic League, a powerful association of Northern European trading cities. And its population was around 200,000 people. At that time, it was double the population of London. Today, 118,000 people live in Bruges. 13th century traders meeting at Bruges house of a certain Van de Beurs were the first to formalize the stock trading, which are still nowadays called bourses in many languages. The history of this city is extremely fascinating, and you will be able to know more about it in a very fun way at the Historium, a museum that occupies this wonderful neo-Gothic building on the market square. The multimedia virtual tour will literally immerse you in medieval Bruges. It is very recommended also for families and children. What caused the decline of the city was a combination of facts. On one side, the dynastic conflict between the French and Habsburgs in 1482, which caused raising taxes and restrictions on the guildsmen's privileges. Then the Hanseatic League moved to Antwerp, and many merchants followed, abandoning the city. And most devastating of it all was that the Zwin, the waterway from nearby village Dam that offered the city access to the sea, gradually silted up, and Bruges lost all its access to the sea. From that moment, the city slept for 400 years. Bruges became popular again thanks to a book written in 1892 by the Belgian writer Georges Rodenbach, Bruges la Morte. And tourism has brought the city back to life, especially because it is one of the most perfectly medieval time capsule, which has thankfully survived both world wars. In 2008, also the black comedy crime film In Bruges, starring Colin Farrell, brought back attention to the city. Now we are going to explore the Belfry, Belfort, towering 83 meters. This square is like a gigantic medieval rocket in this fabulous 13th century belfry. If you are adventurous enough, you can climb up the 366 claustrophobic steps up to the top. In the cloth trading towns of the medieval Low Countries, wealth and education led to precocious ideas about personal rights. These notions are embodied in the grand guild houses on Market Square and in the construction of secular belfries and ornate city halls. Belfries in Belgium and France are highly significant tokens of the winning of civil liberties, and over the centuries, they came to represent the influence and the wealth of the town. I'm now taking you. Oops. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to do it like this. I'm now going to take you up to the top of the belfry. Lucky you, you don't have to climb all the steps. And if we look up, we can see the belfry's 47 bell carillon, which is still played manually on a changing schedule. From here, once you're up, you can look outside, and this is what you will see. This beautiful city panorama.
We actually don't see it moving like you may see it. We just see the still shot.
Oh, really? Okay. Thanks for telling me, Mara.
Sure.
Thanks for telling me that. So you don't, if I click on another image, let's try this.
Sorry, no.
Do you still see the frozen shot?
Yes, we do see it frozen, not like we saw it in rehearsal. So
yeah, that's a shame. I think that has to do because I'm using the internet connection of my telephone now.
Right, exactly.
Otherwise, I would have been offline because there's still no power. I really don't. This is really strange. I have to tell you, never happened that it's gone. It hasn't gone for so long. Okay, if you just give me 10 seconds, I have a B plan.
It's always good.
You have to give me, as a, it's called Bruges B plan. It's really called Bruges B plan. Okay. Because here, in case I had troubles, I made a presentation with some pictures. So at least I have some picture to show you. Okay, so from up to the belfry, we will transfer to Berg, just east on the mark.
Just make sure you share your screen so everybody can see your presentation.
Oh, okay. I thought I was sharing the screen, but here. Okay. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Thank you, Mara. I would be lost without you. You are my light in the darkness.
I'm happy to be.
So here we are in Berg, just east of the Markt, in this enchanting square, which has been Bruges administrative center for centuries. The city hall, the monumental city hall, dates back to 1376, and it is one of the oldest in the Low Countries. It is from here that the city has been governed for more than 600 years. An absolute masterpiece is the Gothic Hall, with its impressive vault and 20th century murals depicting the history of Bruges. The western end of the city hall morphs into the Basilic van het Heilige Bloed, the Basilic of the Sacred Blood. The basilica takes its name from a phial supposedly containing a few drops of Christ's blood that was brought here after the 12th century's crusades. This is the upper chapel, which is upstairs and is a colorfully adorned chapel where the relic is hidden behind a flamboyant silver tabernacle and brought out for religious people for veneration at 2 p.m. every day. Upstairs, you will also find the treasury, which hosts the reliquary in which the phial is mounted on a sessions day for Bruges' biggest annual parade, which is the Heilige Bloed processie, the procession of the sacred blood. In the lower chapel, you see a totally different atmosphere. The bare stone 12th century Romanesque chapel is a very meditative place, very different from the rest of the church. Here in this picture, you see Bruges Frei. This was once the seat of the Liberty of Bruges, the large autonomous territory and administrative body that ruled Bruges from 1121 to 1794. Much of the building is still used for city offices, but you can visit the Renaissance Salle to admire its remarkable 1531 carved chimney piece. Above a black marble fireplace inside an alabaster frieze, there is an incredibly detailed oak carving that depicts a sword-waving Emperor Charles V. Here you see the fish market. First, fish was sold on one of the market's corner, but then the town people started complaining about the smell. So fishmongers were forced to move and sell their wares here. The fish market was built in 1830, and you can still buy your fresh fish every morning on the square. Here you see probably the most famous, one of the most famous spots in Bruges on the canal, which is called the Culinary. Undoubtedly one of the most romantic places in the world. Every canal in Bruges is a jewel, but this is very special also because all of the trees that line up the canal. Further down the canal, there is this spot which is called Rosendukai. It's the city most popular spot for photography. From here, you can take these small boats that will give you a tour on water of the city of Bruges. This is absolutely something that you must do when you are in Bruges, also because it gives you the opportunity to see corners of the city that you will not be able to see walking on the street. Just like what happens in Venice. Actually, Bruges is nicknamed the Venice of the North. In these pictures, you see the Grotius Museum, which is a museum that narrates the history of Bruges, dividing it in three different periods. The period of the Burgundians, the 17th, 18th century, and the 19th century neo-Gothic style that is so typical of the city today. Inside, you will admire majestic tapestries, stained glass, wooden sculptures, paintings, porcelain. It is very, very interesting. Just around the corner of this museum, it is a little bit hidden, but you must make sure that you don't miss this spot. It's called Bonifacius Bridge. It's the only bridge in Bruges that has a building standing on it. Dominating the surroundings, you will see it. You see it from everywhere in town. Is the Our Lady Church, Onze Lieve Vrouw Church. It's a 13th century church which was reopened in 2015 after an extensive renovation. It has an enormous 370 feet spire that you can see everywhere throughout the city. Inside the church, you will admire, you won't believe this, but it is true, a work by Michelangelo, the Madonna and Child statue that dates back 1504. The sculpture was stolen twice in the history, first by French revolutionaries in 1794, and then by Nazi Germans in 1944, but now is back to Bruges. It was actually bought from Michelangelo, from a traders from the city of Bruges, while Michelangelo was still alive. In this picture, you see the Groningen Museum, which is one of probably the most famous museum in Bruges, especially for art lovers and painters lovers. The museum is very famous for the collection of the Flemish Primitives. I don't know if you have heard this name before, probably yes. They are called primitive, but they are not primitive at all. They are called primitive because the movement was born in the Flanders in the 15th century, and they were based in Bruges and surroundings, and they pioneered the technique of painting in oil on oak boards, adding also these thin layers of paint to produce these jewel bright colors. So they're called primitives because in Latin, primus means first. They were the first ones to use this technique. This is a picture of the inside of the Groningen Museum. And we are almost at the end of the tour. We will be exploring this small district of the Begijnhof. It is a very charming spot in town. I mean, the old town is charming, but this is particularly charming. It is a very quiet area. You see a lot of these white colored houses. And in this area, which was founded in 1245, was once home to the Beguines, who were emancipated laywomen who led a pious and celibate life. Today, the Beguinage is inhabited by nuns of the Order of St. Benedict and several Bruges women that have decided to remain unmarried. This picture shows you a very interesting site that opened recently, about 10 years ago. It's called Kant Centrum. It's both a museum of laces and also a place where they often organize a workshop and demonstration of lace making. I have a video for you where you can actually see. I have a video. I should have a video for you. Yes. There it is. So here you see the technique of the Nadelkant, which I was mentioning before in Bruges. The lace center is housed in the renovated all lace school of the Sister of the Immaculate Conception, and the museum tells the story of the Bruges laces. This is very fascinating to watch. I could have stayed there for hours. I couldn't see the end of the beginning of the work, but I really appreciated. In this picture, you see the Cathedral of Saint Salvator, which is Bruges' oldest parish church, and among its treasures has got medieval tombs and a beautiful organ, and lots of tapestries, and also a great collection of Flemish paintings. This is a picture of the interior of the church. And then, I'm sorry, I cannot show you the inside because I had a link here too, but I'm afraid it's not going to work. In this church, which is called Jerusalem Kerk, it is the Aldornes domain estate. It's still privately owned by the Adorns family. And it's peculiar because inside there is a sort of a macabre monument with a gruesome altarpiece covered with skulls motifs. So it is a very interesting, also actually very beautiful sight to see. So in Bruges, one of the funniest attractions that you can experience in town is the Museum of Belgian Fries. An entire museum dedicated to the humble ship. Something very important to know, and for your personal safety, I'm telling you this. If you go to Belgium, you should never, ever call them French fries. You have to call them Belgian fries. According to the Belgian, this is what happened. There was a terrible mistake that dates back World War I when American troops sampled a Belgian fry for the first time, but hearing French spoken around them, they declared it to be French fries. But they are actually Belgian fries, at least in Belgium, where you are in Belgium. When you're outside Belgium, you can call them whatever you like. As the tour is ending, really ending now, I want to leave you on a sweet note, and this tour could not be completed after I didn't mention the greatest gift Belgians have done to humans, the pralines. The magic bean of chocolate made its way in Belgium in the 17th century when Belgium was under the Spanish rule. The production of chocolate bars didn't start in the country until 1847, when they started to import the machinery from Switzerland. Jan Neuhaus Sr. moved from Switzerland to Belgium in 1857, setting up a pharmacy in Brussels serving chocolate-covered medicine. His grandson then replaced the medicine with a variety of soft, creamy centers made the chocolate history in 1912 with the invention of the Belgian praline. Belgium has a huge number of chocolate shops. Over 300 chocolate companies operate in Belgium with 2,000 shops across the country. The main brands are Leonidas, was founded by the Greek-American Leonidas Kestedikis in 1913, Neuhaus, who also founded the Côte d'Or, and Godiva, and many, many others. In Bruges, you can admire also the fancy chocolate shop of Pierre Marcolini, which is the most upmarket of the upmarket Belgian brands. So innovation, creativity, searching and mixing is what characterize chocolate making in Belgium, just like with beer. Another Belgian delicacy that you should not miss are the waffles, together with the cou-bourdon, which are these snow-shaped cones of raspberry and Arabic gum. And now we slowly say goodbye to the city, exiting the center from one of the 14th century gates that still stand, despite the city walls are not longer there, but the city gates are still there. And in this green lung that surrounds the city center, you can also admire the 4 remaining windmills. And this really was the end of the tour. I am sorry for all the technical disasters.
You did awesomely excellent, I have to say. In order to get through that with grace and a sense of humor was awesome. I'm just glad we didn't have a fire as that big candle came into play, but I think that's awesome. So I don't want to hesitate very much. I would like to go into the Q&A because God forbid the computer electricity goes out or your phone internet goes out.
I can check how much battery I still have. No, I have 89% battery.
Oh, you're good. You're good. So we can take all the questions that are here. So, so for one, thank you very much. I mean, it's always nice to see you come with your sweet sense of humor and your sensibility. So we really enjoy that. And thank you for sharing Belgium with us. I have a tour that I am going through Belgium on a train. And now, I need to find a way to stop and enjoy some of these cities on our way. And I know that you have spent a lot of time in Amsterdam and the Netherlands, and Belgium is very close by. So so that's a great place to sort of detour yourself when you're in the Netherlands as well. So as you all can see from the slide that's up, this is the end of our tour. We're going to go into a Q&A. And Ione, if you could just open up the Q&A and start reading them while I'm talking, you'll get comfortable. We'll start at the top and we'll go forward. If anybody out there is looking for the way to tip Ione, I have given you some ways to tip on this slide. You can go to my website. There's a secure tipping by credit card there. And then if you use Venmo or PayPal or any of those other apps, I can certainly take that and facilitate the handoff. We understand that not everybody's able to tip, and that's perfectly fine. Do not feel guilty. But if you are able and you want to and you enjoyed this tour, by all means, do so. All right, so we're going to go into the Q&A. Are you ready, Ione? We're going to start at the top and we'll see how far we can get.
Absolutely. There's one thing I want to say just quickly. Of course, everybody has probably noticed that I haven't talked about World War heritage in Belgium, But I did that because you had a tour on war history, so I didn't want to repeat what it had been done already. But that is obviously also another very important thing that also many people maybe that are watching us have also personal reason to do. Many visitors come to Belgium because they have relatives or families that have fought in the battlefields here in Europe during the wars.
It's amazing
So
that Bruges survived. It's amazing that
yeah.
that city actually survived.
Yes, that was untouched, really.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, that is incredible. So where did the name Belgium come from? Belgium, sorry, it's always an Italian's fault, but it comes from Belgae, which was the name given by the Romans. Is Belgium German? Belgium has also been German during the 2000 years of history, and meanwhile everybody was trying to conquer it, so it has been ruled by the Germans as well. But now it's not German, but they have a German speaking community in the south. It's about 70,000 people who speak natively German. Is Belgium good to observe nature? Yes. Yes, and I mentioned the Svin, this canal that was linking Bruges to the seaside, who dried up over the centuries. And there, for instance, there's a beautiful natural reserve that hosts and takes care of birds, for instance. But there are also many forests. There is the Ardennes forest, which is beautiful with all these also very interesting geological spots, caves and so on. It's incredible also for hiking, all these activities, worth it. Do they speak English? Yes, they absolutely. The Belgian people speak English because, as I said, Belgium is a small country. So even in Holland, it's the same. They all speak English because, you know, they drive 3 hours, they are already outside their country. So they must be able to speak some other language. They also speak English because of the European Union headquarters. There's many expats living especially in Brussels. Actually, there's more foreigners than people from Belgium living in Brussels. In Bruges, the movie is one of your favorites. Yes, me too. I love that movie. Why did Belgium get bigger? No, well, that was a joke. That was a joke. There was this article all over the newspapers in Italy, in the Netherlands, English newspapers everywhere about this funny story of a farmer who was bothered by this stone marking the border between Belgium and France. So he simply got it and pushed it inside the French territories. So he made Belgium bigger. I don't know why it made such a fuss, but everybody was talking about this. It was really funny. Who dresses the little boy fountain? So anyone, any group for any occasion can donate a costume to the mannequin piece. It will have to be decided if they will actually put it on him or not. But you know who is very fond of the mannequin piece? Japanese. There is replicas of the mannequin piece in Japan. And every time you go in front of the mannequin piece, it's very special because you see that the Japanese groups absolutely adore it. They love it. When is the Garden of Flowers? So I think you mean the Keukenhof. And that is close to Belgium, but it's in the Netherlands. And it is in April and May. And this year they managed to open for 3 days only, but better than nothing.
How about the carpet, the in the square where you showed the carpet of flowers?
The flower carpet. Oh, sorry. Maybe, yeah, it was referred to August, in the month of August of every even year. What is my favorite Belgian beer? I like wheat beers. And also La Chouffe. But we don't get very good Belgian beers in Italy, unfortunately. When the children attend school in Belgium, are they taught both French and Flemish throughout these years at school? Yes, because it's bilingual. So they are taught in both languages. Is the comic book walk a new attraction? How long would it take to see the stops? I don't remember coming across it 20 years ago. I was in Belgium. I think it's quite recent, to be honest. Yes, because I've been traveling in Belgium in the last 10 years, and it's only in the last 3-4 years that at least it got popular. The graffitis might have been there since longer, but the tour as an offer to tourists, I think it's quite recent. And the tour should last around 2 hours. But it's very nice because you walk all around the city center, so you see actually the whole city. Plus, there is this fil rouge of the comic strip, which makes it, it gives a different perspective, a new perspective. What city in Italy is your guide currently in? Okay, I'm in Viterbo. That's where I am now. Viterbo with no electricity. Usually we do have electricity, but obviously not tonight. Is the food in Belgium sympathetic to celiacs, gluten-free diets? I would say yes. Why not? Because they also eat, if you go to the restaurant, it's a very multicultural place, so you find food from all over the world. But the typical Belgian recipes, you find a lot of seafood, mussels, herrings, you find soups, you find meat. So beside of the French fries, which you might not be able to, to eat, yes, I think you would do pretty well. What is the name of the movie done in Bruges? That is in Bruges. It's the movie of Bruges. And then if it's Tuesday, this must be Belgium, which is more in Brussels. When is the best time to visit in terms of weather, crowds, special events? So the weather in Belgium is, how do I say that? Changeable. It's just like in the Netherlands. You might think the summer is the best time to go, but that doesn't prevent you to be there in the summer under pouring rain. So it changes quite a lot. It is not a very warm country. So Belgian people don't really care about the rain. They don't even use umbrellas because they are used to it. And I have to say the rain is not like actually pouring rain. It's not a tropical storm. It's a very light, thin rain, which allows you to do everything. But probably the best time to go there, I would say spring and summer, because it's not as hot as any other, for instance, Southern European countries, which can make things complicated. No mention of Audrey Hepburn, but I think Audrey Hepburn was Dutch. I am not sure. I think she was Dutch. I might be wrong. We shall check. What is the most common religion in Belgium? So from the cathedrals in the tour, are they Catholic cathedrals? Agriculturally, what is Belgium famous for? So to answer the first question, religion has been a big trouble in Belgium for 2000 years. They have had a lot of wars because of religion, especially between the division Protestants and Catholics. The dominant religion in Belgium is Catholicism, but they have also an important number of Protestants as well. And many of the cathedrals in Brussels have been destroyed during the centuries by the various wars that have been ongoing in Belgium. Few of them survive, like the cathedral I showed you, the Gothic Cathedral of Saint Michel and Godul. Agriculturally, I would say that Belgium is very famous for hope. That is one of the reasons why they are very good also with the beer making. Yeah? And it is also a very old tradition. Does Belgium have Belgian cats? That is a very cute question. I don't know. I can tell you that they have something special with roosters, and they also have a competition of roosters. Yes, the singing roosters. They have a competition with singing roosters. They have a particular passion for roosters, but I don't know about cats. It is an expensive country to travel in. No, I would say not particularly expensive. Do they use the euro? Yes, because they have invented the euros. Because they sponsored it quite a lot. How many days do you recommend staying in Bruges? Usually on the tours that I lead, we have the extension in Bruges. That means that we stay there about 3 days. And that is about enough to enjoy the city at a low pace and see the monuments, because the city is it's tiny. It is not a big city. But you can easily, if you just want to stay there and relax, and also maybe take a look at the surrounding cities, you can spend there easily a week. You will, for sure, you won't get bored. Because it's also very close to Antwerp, so you can also do little day trips from there. It's very well connected. Is the train route going through Belgium and hooking up along with other European cities? Yes, absolutely. It's very well connected. From Brussels, you get everywhere within 2, maximum 3 hours. In 2 hours, you get to Amsterdam, you get to London in 2 hours, you get to Paris in 2 hours. It is at the heart of Europe. It's close to, I remember many, many years ago, 20 years ago, when I was a young student, poor young student, and I couldn't afford to fly directly, for instance, to Paris or Amsterdam. There was these cheap flights. They were the first cheap flights that we had in Europe. It was the Virgin airplane company. You could fly from Rome to Brussels with 10 euros. And then from there, I would take the train to Amsterdam or to Paris, which was like 50 euros. It was more expensive, the train, than the plane. It was crazy. But from Brussels, you can get everywhere. What about shopping or flea markets? Do you have any suggestions? Yes, so around the district, around the Beurs, which is right in the center, very close to the Grand Place, 10 minutes, even less, maybe even less than 10 minutes walking distance. So there is a whole area, and you cannot miss it, because you see all these shops with clothing. And that is a mix of high fashion, like designer fashion, and also vintage shops and secondhand clothing, but with a very original style. It is very amusing to go shopping in Belgium, because you find everything. It's very creative, the way they dress. Can you tell us about the swans in Bruges? So this is something I have asked myself to any local tour guide I have spoken to. There are several stories, but there isn't a story that it's quite convincing. It seems more that they invented this story like recently in the last 10 years, where mass tourism has blossomed in the city. And because of the swans, they are so theatrical, so scenographic. The only thing I can tell you that I know for real is that they are very careful with the swan population. They encourage the swan to be in the city. They take care of them. If they are sick, they cure them. They, you know, they take good care of them because they know that swans are also an attraction in the city. There are also some legends about a girl who was locked in her house from her dad, who didn't want her to marry the man she loved, and these two swans would visit her. There's all sorts of romantic stories related to the swans, but not really a real story, let's say, something that, you know, based in tradition. You don't really find this. What I can tell you is that the swan throughout Belgium, and not only in Belgium, but also in the Netherlands, the swan has been used in architecture since the medieval time as a symbol of wealth. In fact, as I was showing you in the Grand Place, this main building, Le Cygne, the swan, with this carved swan, that a building that dates back to the 16th century. So the swan shows power, shows elegance, the symbol of the aristocracy somehow. How has COVID affected the cities? Lockdown, open, it has affected the city in a very hard way. Bruges was deserted. Actually, it is very interesting this year. Every 3 years, they held in Bruges the triennial art exhibition. And every 3 years, they call different contemporary artists to do artworks and installation throughout the city. And every 3 years, they give a topic. And the topic of this year is trauma, related to the times and days we are living. Now we are witnessing a light is opening, like tonight, a light in the end of the tunnel. Again, not here in my city. No, we're still not locked down, but blackout. We have another style here, but we're not locked down anymore. So we can actually, you know, we go out, children go to school, we go to work, and now we can also travel. We can also travel within the EU. If you are vaccinated, you can travel, or you can travel with a negative corona test. So they are getting very busy to reopen to tourism. So this brings us a lot of hope and a little bit of a smile back on our faces. Do you know what major city is close to Thierremont area where the Battle of the Bulge was fought? I would say Ypres. Ypres is the Belgian name for Ypres. Where the Time Clock Cemetery is, this beautiful cemetery, and also fabulous, very interesting museum on World War I and World War II in Passchendaele. But that is Ypres is the area, the main area. I studied in Brussels in college in the 80s, lived near Place Louise. I went back to visit in 2019 to show my son. It was wonderful, full of emotion. Yes. The drink cool beer, or do they have it in the same temperature as weather time? No, cold beer. Write the names of the chocolate makers. So the most famous ones is Godiva. I think you have them in the States too. Neuhaus, Leonidas, but also now a very famous upmarket chocolatier is Pier Marcolini. These are the most famous ones. But when you get to Belgium, you get to discover that there is plenty of unknown brands, of labs, small labs, where people make their own chocolate there. So outside of the big industrial production. And these smaller shops are usually also very, very good. And you find the craziest combination. Audrey Hepburn was born in Ixelles, Belgium. Okay, thank you. No, I didn't know about that. I thought she was Dutch. Is Antwerp still the diamond capital of the world? Definitely, diamonds are a very big thing in Antwerp. There's a whole neighborhood in the city which is dedicated to the diamond cutting, polished diamond cutting. So yes. Leuven, largest Catholic university in the world. Yes, and in Leuven there is also, I think it's part of that university, a large department on science applied also to agriculture and to beer making. I was reading about this connection with study, because they study also the brewer techniques with robots and artificial intelligence and so on. And that was happening in Leuven. Yes, absolutely. A very important center of research. I've been to Ghent several times and fortunate enough to experience Gentse Feesten. What are some of the other popular festivals? Pageants are very popular in Belgium, processions, and bicycle races as well. Is Bruges going to limit tourism? I don't know exactly how it is going to be this year. I think the trend is to open up. All Europe is opening up, but governments are still careful until the situation, it really doesn't seem more under control. So I don't know how this is going to be put in practice, but they are opening up gradually. I think it's going to be gradually. And if things go well, they are monitoring, the results of their decisions. So if things go well, we can be hopeful that we go back to normal. Does Belgium have Christmas markets? Yes, absolutely. Brussels have a very beautiful Christmas market nearby the Grand Place, and Bruges, they have a beautiful Christmas market. Christmas market in Belgium are a little different from the German Christmas markets, for instance. There is definitely the Christmas atmosphere, but for example, the difference is that there is plenty of food, not just manufacturing objects that you can use for Christmas decoration, but also lots of food. It's more an occasion to go out, to get out and socialize. So there is more, I'd say, food and drinks rather than just Christmas shopping articles. But it is a very nice atmosphere. What is the first language of the Belgians, French or Dutch? It depends on which Belgium you speak with. If you speak with a Flemish, they will tell you Dutch. If you speak with a French, they will tell you French. I think it's 60% Flemish and 40% French. But as Brussels is the most populated city and the most famous city, and in Brussels everybody speaks French, generally speaking, people tend to associate Belgian people to the French language. But if you go to the Flanders, they speak Dutch. Some of them may also have some troubles to speak French, or they don't speak it in a good way because their main language is Dutch. The name of the King Charles pageantry that happens every year, Omgang. Omgang. I've thought of doing a river cruise in Belgium. What do you think of them? I don't have experience of river cruises in Belgium. I never done one, but I think it is a very good idea because water is a dominant element in the lowlands. The lowlands means that they are under the sea level. So water is a dominant element of their life. It's somehow it's a danger, but it is also that they're very good at controlling and also at respecting. So I would say water in the lowlands is a beautiful perspective. Is that spelled Ommegang? Yes, there is a brewery in the US that brews traditional Belgian beers by that name. Yeah, I'm not surprised because it is a traditional. Are Lucan cookies still the traditional cookies? Lucan cookies. I know the speculas cookies. They're called speculas because they have this herbs mix that is called speculas. Lucan, I don't know.
I'll take the final question that I see, which is,
Yes.
we missed the beginning. Does the tour play again? All of the presentations are recorded and they will be posted on my website, which is girltraveltours.com. It's also on the YouTube channel. If you just put in the search in YouTube, Girl Travel Tours plus Belgium tour, you'll get this one. And then also they're on Facebook. So you can see every tour that you've missed, including this one again on all those channels. So that's a way for me to segue into a big thank you to Ione for tonight. You were such a good sport. You just kept going and you did a great job without really skipping a beat. So thank you very much. And thank you to the audience for staying with us and enjoying Belgium. I'll let Ione have her final goodbye and then we will head off.
Now I see one of the question is, we missed the beginning. Does the tour play again? So please watch it on YouTube because the beginning was very beautiful. I had lights and I had this wonderful setting. I'm in a in a very beautiful palace. It's not my house, unfortunately. It looks like the Sistine Chapel. I was so proud of my location. So, but if you want to see it, now it's a huge surprise, then you have to watch a recording on YouTube. The first maybe 10 minutes, and then we went into the darkness because we were talking about medieval age and they call it the age of darkness. So we had to give this.
That's right. We matched the architecture, right?
Exactly. This chiaroscuro effect, very theatrical, very dramatic. Now thank you, Mara, and thank you all of you for your patience. Number one, what can I say? I have to be also a bit honest about it. This incident has brought me back, has given me that feeling of when you really are on tour and something happens, and many things happen on tour. Once I was in Bruges and I had the most wonderful compliment from a woman who was traveling with me. We were looking at the swans on the canals in Bruges. It was a beautiful day and all these swans were quiet and relaxing and were floating in the water. And I was enjoying that moment with her, but we weren't at the end of the tour, so I may have looked a little bit tired as well, I don't know. But this lady told me, Ione, I think you tour directors are like swans. Outside, you're smooth and you float on the water, but down, you pedal.
Seriously,
like
right.
crazy, but nobody sees it. So
that's a great, that is a great analogy. That's a great analogy.
I will never forget that analogy. I loved it. So I probably was ugly swan but I really enjoyed it. I really enjoy doing this because I really enjoy being on tour. I'm glad to have the chance to virtually talk to you, sharing with you my passion. And I really hope that I can soon go back again to meet people for real and exchange opinions and feelings and experiences. That is what keeps me in a good mood, because I'm sure we're going back to that and we will be even happier and more determined to do our job. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you so much, everybody. And thank you, Ione. We're going to say goodbye and have a great night. And we will see you next week.